Alright, so again, the program that we're going to be doing is from Chapter 10, and it's a person and a customer class. I'm going to do the same thing right now I asked you to do. In other words, I'm going to go to the P drive out here, just as I asked you to do. There's the folder. So I'm going to take that folder and drag it off to my desktop. Right mouse click on it and tell it to move or copy it there. Yeah, it says I already have one, so let me remove the one I have. Copy it there. And there it is. Alright. And what this has in it, if I double click on it to bring it up, alright, is it's got a start. In other words, the interface has been built on here. So if I bring it up here, the interface is there. There's nothing under the display, alright, and the clear button is done because basically, again, all we have to do with the clear button is we want to clear this out, clear this out, clear this out, make sure that's not make sure that that's not checked, and put the focus there. So that's already in there. And again, the exit button is also excuse me, the exit button is also done already. So what we're going to be concerned with here is adding a couple classes, and after we add those classes, we're going to go and put the functionality in for the display button. Alright? There's really not a lot of code that we're going to have to add in here. If you look what's in here right now, you'll notice, as usual, we've got a form, etc., but we don't have the person class, we don't have the customer class. Okay? And it's kind of important when you think about this, when you start to think about what's referred to as inheritance, alright, a customer is a person, but a person is not necessarily a customer. Does that make sense to people? Alright? You know, that's like saying that, for example, a bee is an insect, but not all insects are bees. That kind of an idea. And you have to keep that in mind as we start going through this. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to come in here and let's take a look at the actual comment that's at the top of the program. Alright, it says design a class named person with the properties for holding a person's name, address, and phone number. Well, this is very similar to what we did the other day. It's going to look almost identical to what we did the other day. We're going to create a class, we're going to call it person, and that person class will have those three attributes. Each person has a name, each person has an address, each person has a phone number. Well, and when you look at it, there's their name, there's their address, and there's their phone number. So we're saying those things are going to be, you know, all people have that. Alright, next, design a class named customer, which is derived from person class. The customer class should have a custom number. Should probably have said customer number, not custom number, but that's fine. So it should have a customer number and a Boolean property indicating whether or not the customer wishes to be on the mailing list or doesn't wish to be on the mailing list. Alright, so we'll put that in, and then we'll demonstrate the object of the customer class. And again, to do that, that'll say that when we run the program, it'll expect that we have something in the name, something in the city, state, zip, something in the phone number, and that's either checked or it's not checked. And when we click display, that should produce all the information that we have here. That make sense? Alright, now we'll go back and we'll talk about the stuff that's in the book from Chapter 10. Alright? So the first thing that I want to do in here is I want to right mouse click where it says person and customer classes. Right mouse click on that. Go down to add and choose new item. And this is where we had some problems last time. Well, we want to make sure that that says right there, alright, that class is the top entry. So we're going to change that because we don't want to call our class class 1. We want to call our class person. Alright, so make sure that you, again, have right mouse clicked right there, not up there on the solution, but down below it, right there, right mouse click, choose Add, New Item, and the first thing that should come up is Class. Make sure that's highlighted, and it's Person that we want to put in here, .cs. Remember that when you create a class in this language, when you actually create a class file, it's a .cs file that has no GUI associated whatsoever. All right, it's just code that you put in there for it. And it's going to be pretty simple once we get going, because again, it only has those three things in it. So notice our namespace. That's what I call the project, person and customer classes. That's good. Class, person. All right, it's exactly what we want to have in there so far. So we just said that each person has a name. Each person has an address. Oops. And each person has a phone number. All right. Now, again, if I want to get real anal here, I can go and put in person's name, person's address, person's phone number. All right. Those are what are referred to as the three attributes for anybody that we're going to create based off of this person class. All right. They will all have a name, an address, and a phone number. Okay. Now, we're not told in this particular example, we're not told in here to do anything as far as creating one of those constructors that we talked about last time. But we'll make one anyway. All right, so in other words, if you come in here and you create a person, and that should have been a capital P, that was my error. If you create a person, we want to make sure that whenever we create a person, that's interesting, I'm trying to figure out why I got that. Class, delegate, enum, or struct. Well, I got an error, but when I actually keyed it in, they got no error. So that's pretty interesting. I'll tell you what, for now, let's leave that off. What should happen if we don't put any constructor in there whatsoever is the system should create a blank one for us, and that's all I wanted anyway. So I'm just going to leave that out. Not sure why I got that error, because I've done it before without having any problems. All right. Now, you may or may not remember this from last class, but I'm just going to show it to you real quickly. Boy, great start. I don't want that to say namespace. Oh, I think I know what the problem is. See that right there? That should be at the very bottom. That's why it was giving me an error here. And that was why it was giving me an error here. Okay? So that was on me. So make sure that where you've got class person here, probably tab that over so it looks a little nicer. Tab that over. There. All right. So you want to make sure that everything that we're about to do here is inside of that curly. And I didn't have it in the curly. That's why I got an error. All right. This, again, is referred to as, and you don't have to type in the comments, I could care less, person, class, constructor. So that says, what are we going to do whenever we create a person? Well, guess what? We're never going to create a person, because a person themselves is too generic that we're not going to actually create a person. We're going to create customers that are based off of persons, but we're not going to create a person itself. So I'm just going to leave that blank. I'm literally going to put nothing in there, and it'll work just fine. All right? But now I've got to come in here and for my name and for my address and for my phone number, so for these three fields, I've got to put in my getters and setters. If you were here last time, hopefully you remember that. If you weren't here last time, you probably are confused then. All right? So that's my getter and setter. Call them whatever you want. Most of the times you see them in books as accessor and mutator for name field. All right? And then I want to do the exact same thing for the address and for the phone number. Exactly. Except where it says name, I want to change it to address, and where it says name, I want to change it to phone number. So if you weren't a quick typist, that's what we had at the beginning. Under class person, private string underscore name, private string underscore address, private string underscore phone number. All right, for the person's name, address, and phone number. Then we did our constructor, which I just totally left blank. There's nothing there. That's fine. Then we're going to do the accessor and the mutator for the name field. Now, again, I've said this the other day. If you like to type, which is fine, then go ahead and type all this in there 2 more times. But since I don't feel like typing, I'm going to copy everything that's in there, and I'm going to paste it in. The first time, I'm going to say, so this will be my address. All right, and then when I do it a second time, that's going to be my phone number. So we had our accessor and mutator for our name field, and then I copied them and changed it to address, and then I copied it again and changed it to phone number. So I've got all of those. And the good news is that's literally everything. That's literally everything for that first class. That's all there is. So again, if you have that one, you can go down and there's the phone number. They all look the same. And the good news is, as far as I can tell down here, when I save, it doesn't have any error messages. So there's no errors showing right now. Good. Now, if you look up on the top of the screen here right now, notice, we got this automatically. This says class person. And what that's saying is a person is a brand new class which is not inherited from anything. It's just a class into and of itself, but we're about to create another class. When we create another class called customer in just a minute, that will inherit from person. So in other words, a customer will automatically have a name, an address, and a phone number, because a person has those. And since a customer is a person, it gets those by default. All right? So what I want to do is I want to again right mouse click on here where we did before, again choose add, again choose new item, but this time where it says class 1, I want that to say customer. And ideally when you're creating these classes, they're singular. One person, one customer. So you don't put S's on the end of them. All right. So again, I did the same exact thing that I did before after I filled all that stuff out. I right mouse clicked on here, went over and chose add, chose new item, and class, which was our default, the first thing in there, and I changed that to customer.cs. All right, and this is even easier than the other one because a customer only has two things that a person doesn't have. A customer has a customer number. We'll make that a string. We could make it an int. All right. I don't know if Jim's talked to you at all in there about that in the 147 class, but if you've got a field that you're not using for a calculation other than like an ID field, so if you've got a field like zip code or social security number, etc., that field should never be made a numeric field. All right. Well, he told us that. Well, then I'd say he's wrong, but he is. But that's fine. All right. You shouldn't, because those fields should be strings, because the only fields that literally you should use and make numeric fields in a database are fields that could conceivably be used in calculations. Again, the exception to that is if you make a field called ID. All right, and you do that so that you're able to do the auto increment. All right, so I've got customer.cs. Now, this has got to change a little bit, because right now it says class customer, but I want to add this, colon, person. And notice the IntelliSense kicked in right here, if you look up on the screen. And what that says is customer inherits from person. So a customer automatically is a person. All right? We didn't get that automatically. We had to key it in because the system did not know that that's what we meant to do. That's how you do it in this language. In other languages, it's done differently. All right? So again, if I put in my class fields here, there are only two of them. The customer number and a Boolean, which we call add to mail list. All right, and this is where I screwed up last time. I hit enter there because I want to make sure that that stays inside of that curly brace. Okay. Now, we could do anything we wanted to do here, but what I'm going to do is, this is my constructor right here, and I'm going to assume, for lack of better words, that everybody wants to be in my mailing list. So by default, you ever seen that when you go to sign up for something and they ask if you want to be part of their news, get their newsletter or whatever? Usually that'll be checked by default. And if you don't see it, well, then now you're going to get their newsletter forever. So, no, that's okay. I can just unsubscribe. Sometimes I think when you unsubscribe from a place, you make it worse than when you first subscribed. All right? So I'm going to put in my accessor and mutator for customer number. So there's the first one. I'll leave it up there for a second. And I'm just going to copy that, all right, for the add to mail list. And then we're done. Then we just have to add some code for our display button, and ideally it'll work for everybody, and we're done. Now, those of you who are in the program, and I believe that's virtually everybody in here, if you're going to take next semester, we do you know, we've been doing work with classes in Java, all right, but the other classes that, the other IT classes that you take in Spring, and would, as far as, just so you know, the C programming language, which is the 152, 149 class, secure coding, C is totally non-object oriented. There are no classes in it. You don't have to worry about the word class. It's not in that language. All right. The 158 class is going to be a bootstrap class. You don't have to worry about classes in there either, technically. You do, but it's totally done totally different. So it's so seamless. It's just working with CSS. All right. With the ASP.NET, yeah, that's kind of builds off of this class. So you'll do a little bit of work with classes in there. Again, Java we've already talked about. All right. And if I'm missing, the PHP we do very little object-oriented in there. It's enough just to throw all the PHP at you. So I'm going to copy all this stuff that you see right here. Paste it in, and this is my accessor and the mutator for the mail list. Now, if you look up on the screen here, make sure you change that one right there from string to Boolean. And there's that one. Now that's everything. So we've got both of our classes written. One thing that's discussed in your book, just so if you don't look up on the screen here just to see this, in the example that we're working on here, in this example, the only thing that we're putting in there are customers. Does that make sense to everyone? Everyone who's going in here, everybody for which we're providing information right here, they're all a customer. The reason I tell you that is, yeah, they're persons also, but they're a customer. So technically, we're never going to actually instantiate or create a person directly. All right? So for instance, if I were to create, let's say that I'm going to make an inheritance hierarchy for a bank. And so what I might do is, at the top of my hierarchy, I might create something that looks like this. I might say, well, we've got a thing here that's called account. Okay? And, well, what kind of accounts do you have? Well, we've got a savings account. Maybe we've got an IRA account. And maybe we've got a checking account. Now, there could be a lot more. If you work at a bank, good for you. All right? But that's fine. But what I'm saying is, well, we're just going to suppose right here. What I'm getting to is, you're probably not going to walk up to somebody and say, I just opened up a brand new account at my bank, because that's too generic of information. In fact, I could, if I wanted to, I could have even called this bank account. And what I'm trying to get across to you is, this right here is so generic, I'm never going to create a class called bank account because it's too generic. If I do that, that kind of class is what's known as an abstract class, because I'm never going to create one. These down here are known as concrete classes, because I will create those. All right? And you'll hear the same verbiage when we go through the stuff that's in the book in just a couple minutes. All right, so I've got everything for my customer. I've got everything for my person. Hopefully that stuff's done. So as I mentioned to you, we already have our exit code in there. You can see that's there. It should work fine. I can always double check it. So run the program. Click exit. Yes. Okay, so that appears to work. All right. The clear button code is in there. Again, I can check that first to make sure it works. I can just throw a bunch of garbage in here. And now that should be cleared, that should be cleared, that should be cleared, and that should not have that should not have the dot on it. So that works. Okay, so I'm 2/3 of the way done already. So what's left to do is my display. All right, so that's the code I'm going to put in for you right now. And literally, let's see, it's, oh, I don't know, it's about maybe 15 lines, something like that. Now, I tried to set it up so that it was at least a minimum of data validation in it. So I put this whole thing into a try-catch block. I'm going to get an error here, and it's fine. I thought I'd get an error there. There we go. Don't worry, all these curly or these squigglies will go away in just a minute. Somebody tell me, even if you're guessing, why am I getting all those squigglies under my customer? What's that? Because we don't have a customer. All right. We haven't done it yet. So there was a line, and I purposely left that off, but there was a line I should put in right at the top of my program here, right before this exit line. So right here, I'm going to put in a line that says, my customer equals new customer. Type or space, my customer cannot be found. Are you missing something? No. Unless it has to go up higher, which is possible. But it's not in mine, but still doesn't like it. Yeah, that would probably be a good thing to do. Thank you. There we go. Thank you, Morgan. All right. So let's break this line down. You can see that in the line here, two of the things that are in there right now are already a light colored blue, which means they're recognized. All right, one word is a darker blue. I don't know if you call that dark blue, but that's a keyword. So what it says here, and she was right, my customer is of type customer. All right, so my customer is a variable, but instead of it being an int or a double or a boolean or something else, my customer is of type customer. And it says that what we want to do here is we want to create a new customer called my customer. And this says when you create it, call the constructor for the customer. Well, we already know that constructor. All that's going to do is it should set add mailing list to true. Now, you might notice that when we do this, I'm going to save this. I want to run it because I want to show you something. You might say, yeah, Jeff, well, okay, because it's not done yet. Let's see, where am I missing? Somewhere I'm missing a curly. Text box, full name. All right. I just want to run this, so hopefully it runs and it doesn't. Yeah, that's a warning, so that should be okay. All right. You notice when I run this, true or false? That's not highlighted. Is that correct? It's not highlighted. All right. But you might say, well, wait a minute. That's not highlighted, but you told it right here to highlight it. And my question to you is, did I tell it to highlight it right there? No, because that's not the radio button. That's the name of the class field. If I wanted that to be checked, the actual class field to be checked, I could have come in here and said radio, whatever we called it. All right. I could have said it there, but I don't want to do that. Okay. So far, all we're trying to do so far is to copy everything over from what's in here into our class variable, what's in here into our class variable, what's in here into our class variable, and what's in here into our class variable. That's all we're doing so far. All right. Now that we've copied it in, probably would be a good idea to use a message box and then display all of it. So this is kind of ugly. I put it over about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I put it over 8 lines. The good news is we have to put one more line in here and we get done, then we're finished. Bless you. And that's everything. Now you're all way too trusting because I really should save it and run it, make sure, okay, that's good, that worked. Looks like it works. Just want to put in some garbage here, and I don't want that to be checked. Okay, all looks like it works. Clear, exit, yeah, it looks okay. And I think right here I didn't put in a colon. All right. Just so you're aware of it, next week when we go over Chapter 11, I'm giving you the program. You're not going to have to type in anything. Databases are their own animal in this language, and there's no way that in 2 hours you would all get it. I still screw it up when I'm doing it. So, yes. This, well, that's why. Okay, you've got name, address, phone number, and add to mail list, right? Those, it's getting those from, notice, customer num, add to mail list, those have to be the same. So, dumb rule, but not my rule. So again, if I save this and run it, you know, I don't know what your phone number is, John. Name is correct, address information is correct, phone number is correct, and the mailing list information is correct. If I add that, all right, it went from false to true. All right, so it all appears, at least, everything that's in there appears to be working. Now, this is a simple example, and as you probably noticed, when I printed everything off, it wasn't formatted very well, so you'd have to play with that a little bit. That's not really what's important in here at all. The aesthetics don't matter. All right. Now, I'm going to give you a break. It's 8:45. We're going to start up at 9, and I'm going to go over the information that's actually in the chapter. All right, so let's come back at 9 o'clock, please. I'll leave this up here in just a second, but I want to first stop taping.